My dudes, we got one more thing to discuss about the trailer for Generation Zero's upcoming Resistance update. From the looks of this here, we're getting one of three things. Either one, we're getting a friggin' laser beam because, hell yeah, Moonraker was the best James Bond movie. Two, we're getting laser pointers to prove that Phoenix really was just cats all along. Or three, we're getting friggin' auto turrets to defend our bases with. Personally, I'm gonna go with three myself, though I'm not gonna lie, if Phoenix really was just Von Ulmer's cat, I would be so down for that. So today, let's talk about how auto turrets will be one of the many really awesome things that we're seeing in the Resistance update at the end of this month. But really quickly, before we get into the rest of this video, did you know that if you swap between the AI-76 and the N16 in burst fire mode, while you're firing, you turn yourself into a literal walking turret in the game? It's pretty rad. It's completely unpractical, but let's take this out really quickly because I just found it and use it in the field to actually kill some machines. So I think that this has something to do with the same glitch that allows you to fire the experimental GRG endlessly. It's probably just something to do with burst fire in the game in general, but this is actually surprisingly really useful and kind of fun to use in combat, though it's a little bit complicated and tricky to pull off. But my dudes, I totally advise that you go out there and muck show some machines by turning yourself into a walking, living, breathing, actual turret in the game. Now, I just gotta say that we don't have absolute confirmation that turrets are coming to the game, but this is more than enough proof, I think, for us to say that turrets are coming to the game. So having turrets is going to be actually really huge for us when it comes to making waves a little bit easier and a little bit more manageable for the solo player. Basically, it's going to be just like a huge support system, provided that we can keep it supplied and probably keep it alive through the waves themselves. This will be really great for solo players, and it will really add a huge layer of strategy to how you lay out your base. Do you have your turret front and center to kind of distract the machines, or hidden behind cover to protect it and save it for later on at like wave 3 or 4? It's going to be a ton of fun to experiment with how we can lay out these turrets to get kind of like the maximum efficiency out of them. And really, honestly, I gotta say it because I don't think I've seen anyone out there acknowledge this too much. I believe that this is yet again the team taking feedback from us, the community, maybe even answers from our previous surveys, and introducing those wishes we have into the game. I can't tell you dudes how many times I've seen people ask for placeable turrets, usually with the intention of using them as some sort of a mountable turret, and even though auto turrets aren't entirely that, I still think it's a really great use of the concept, and will maybe even serve a much more enjoyable purpose as a tactical option instead of a guns a-blazing kind of option. But honestly, I really love the fact that we're likely going to be hitting the ground with base building, having turrets from the get-go. If wave defense will become a repeatable feature for us to play and enjoy in the future, then it has to be fun to repeat, and one of the ways to make it more fun is to introduce various defenses that we can choose to place and utilize around our base. Turrets are a perfect example of that sort of thing. And it just dawned on me, but this is kind of a cool thought too. If we have turrets, then maybe that means that Phoenix can have turrets too, and maybe at Phoenix facilities in the future, there could be some special Phoenix auto turrets or something like that that guard the actual Phoenix facility itself. But anyway, I think that the turret itself is likely going to be a pretty expensive emplacement to put around our base, I would figure, if we do have to actually build it ourselves. So, more than likely, turrets like this will be huge resource sinks to get up and running in the first place. Potentially having even more different turrets and different variations could mean we could potentially be looking at really big grinds to get the perfect turret setup. And then on top of that comes the base destruction side of things, which we discussed in my last video. Go check that out at the end of this video if you haven't yet. But if these turrets are going to attack the machines they're probably going to draw a lot more attention than, say, a wall or a door would. So this means we're likely going to have to spend a bunch of resources keeping a turret in working order, provided there is proper base destruction. But not only do you need to plan your resources to build it, but then you also kind of need to keep a constant supply to keep that turret in working order. There is one big question here, though, that we won't be able to answer until closer to launch. Will we only have one turret at a time, or will we be able to build multiple turrets? One turret means we really need to make sure that its placement is good, and probably means that we won't have a huge amount of options to make any sort of farms out of this wave defense thing. But if we can place multiple, my dudes, that opens so many doors. I really hope that we'll be able to place more than just one, even if it is an immense grind. It'll be so worth it to make a setup that just shreds through machines. For making farms out of this wave defense thing, though, let's talk hypothetically for a second here, just so that you dudes can kind of know what's going on inside of Tenebrous' brain here. So if we could place more than one turret, you could probably have a setup where you have like 2 turrets per wall for like a box for it, and then if you floated around outside the base while the turrets were going off, you'd probably have a pretty easy time through the waves, because you'd have both turrets to kind of draw heat, and then you to kind of float around and do that kind of fine point component damage that Generation Zero needs. But also, you could probably make some sort of a trap where you make like a horseshoe shape or a U shape out of walls, and then you have like a bunch of turrets kind of lining those. This, of course, all depends on how freeform our base building is and what we're able to actually do with our base building. But really, my dudes, when it comes to farms, it's going to be intense how many ways we could set things up. And then when you start to throw in things like trap materials, like mines and car batteries, it's going to be a lot of fun. But then also, outside of just actually repairing the turret when it gets destroyed, there's other forms of upkeep that we could have as well in the future. Something like maybe supplying them with our own ammunition would be pretty cool for that, I think. Maybe have like a set ammo type for like each type of turret, and you could only drop that type of ammo into its inventory. So like a specific 7.62 turret or something like that. This would be cool because then we'd have to make sure the turret has ample ammo counts for the waves. And really the oh shit moment of realizing the turret ran dry would be pretty intense, I think. Now, this is all kind of highbrow theorizing here because we don't even have confirmation on turrets yet, but still, I think that this would be really sick and would add a cool level of interaction from our ends. And again, all hypothetical, but if we are supplying these turrets, heck, why not have multiple types of turrets to choose from? A 5.56 variant in case you want to dump off the 5.56 that you maybe don't use. Or maybe even a beastly high-powered turret that uses something like 50 BMG. I mean, if we're going to fight the Reaper in these waves, then dang, we're going to need some firepower like that. Or even more fun, a friggin' GRG turret that just shells machines with HEDP and EMP rounds. The EMPs would be so sick to have going off all around you as you fight the machines, and HEDP, though dangerous to your own safety, would be pretty cool on its own side, even if a little bit useless. Or even goofier, a turret that launches fireworks for like confusing the machines and distracting them. I think turrets will be awesome to see expanded on in the future, and I really hope that they're super interactive for us, either as like a mountable turret or an automatic turret of doom and destruction. Now, I want to know from you dudes, do you prefer the idea of automatic turrets, or do you prefer the idea of mountable turrets that we would use on our own? Personally, for me, I hate to give this answer because it's such a, like, schmucky answer, but I would like to see both. I would like to see turrets come to the game in a way that, like, you could set them up and you could designate them either as an automatic turret or a manual turret, and basically, between the two, you would have to maybe gather some sort of, a resource in order to turn that turret into an automatic turret. Now, for the last thing that we're going to talk about for turrets is something that's not quite so gameplay related, but kind of is gameplay related, but is more in the fact of, like, where things are going to move in the future. Now, the cool thing that we would see from the turrets being used in the game, especially the automatic turrets that are just automatically targeting the machines, is that this is going to be the first time we see any sort of AI infighting here in Generation Zero. And that's a big thing. That's an incredibly big thing, my dudes. I really hope that someday we'll see the Resistance actually fighting the machines in the game, and I feel like this AI infighting, if it is a thing that happens, is going to be a step in that direction, which I'm super stoked about. As usual, when we're speculating on these future updates, who knows where things could go with this stuff, my dudes? Unless if you've got some sort of a crystal ball with you, you aren't going to be telling the future of Generation Zero anytime soon. But what I can say is that the Resistance update is easily the most exciting update that we've seen so far in the game, and my dudes, I'm just so stoked. I'm so stoked on seeing Generation Zero come to that next level. So, I'm going to leave you with the trailer here for Generation Zero's upcoming Resistance update. Get hyped, my dudes. It's the end of this month. Just a few short weeks away. But, for now, thank you so much for watching. Cheers, dudes, and I will catch you all in the next one. Until then, peace.
We came back to find our home on fire. We came back to find unwelcome guests. We came back and we tried to live. Times were hard, but we found a way. A way to escape, to hide, to survive. We hid in the shadows. We used what we could find. We scavenged. We crafted. We did what we could to live. Now, there is hope. Now, we are united. Now, we are the first brick in the Resistance. And we are building back our resources. Allies and neighbors in arms. Because what is coming is not a skirmish. It's a war.
Приготовиться к фазе 2. Приступить к операции.